Hello, and thank you for tuning into my video. I'm going to be talking tonight about Mahmoud Khalil. I believe that's the way the name is pronounced, although I may not have that precisely right. I'm not proficient in speaking the Arabic language and in the pronunciations of names that are Arabic in origin. But Mahmoud, I'll use just the first name. Many will be aware of the fact that he is a student protester from Columbia University who was something of a figurehead, something of a leader of the protests that were taking place at Columbia University, as well as many universities across the United States, as well as here in my native Canada. And he has now been arrested by ICE and is being held in a detention facility, from what I understand, in the state of Louisiana, and is facing the prospect of being deported from the United States. And I'm here to say that this case centers very much on a very important issue, an issue that's very near and dear to my heart, and it is the issue of free speech. My name is Gordon Causey. I'm a 58-year-old Canadian, ex-military, and I identify myself as very much a proponent of liberal democracy, of classical liberal democracy. And one of the aspects of classical liberalism is to cherish the right of free speech. And this is a complicated issue. If you have tuned into my channel before, you would know that I have been widely supportive of a lot of the policies initiated by the Trump administration in the United States. However, on this instance, I am breaking from that, and that may surprise some. It may surprise some, especially if they viewed any of my content with respect to the conflict going on between Israel and Iran, between Israel, Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis. And I very much am a supporter of Israel's right to exist, of Israel's right to defend itself. But regardless of my support for the nation state of Israel and its right to exist and defend itself, I recognize that there are those who hold contrary views. I know that there are those who view Israel as a abuser of human rights. There are individuals who view Israel as being something of an apartheid state. From what I understand, the protests at Columbia University centered around calls by the protesters. They wanted Columbia, the university, they wanted it to divest itself from anything attached to Israel. Just to put a fine point on things, universities have endowments. There are alumni and organizations and individuals who contribute often large sums of money to post-secondary institutions like Columbia, like Harvard, like Yale, like many colleges and universities across the United States and Canada. Alumni associations are huge avenues that seek to raise money. And then that money that they raise is often invested. And the protesters at Columbia University wanted the monies it was investing, they wanted the powers that be to divest themselves of any investments with ties to the nation state of Israel. Israel is a bit of a tech giant. They have numerous publicly traded companies and companies that aren't even publicly traded that invite investment from around the world. And the protesters wanted Columbia divesting from all Israeli associated investments. That was their point of view. And it is a point of view with which I vehemently disagree. However, regardless of my disagreement with their point of view, I think they should absolutely 100% have the right to express it. This Mahmoud individual, this gentleman being detained in Louisiana, I believe he has a master's degree, and he was something of a spokesman. Apparently, he had appeared on mainstream media as a spokesperson, as a spokesman for the protesters. From everything I've read and everything I've been able to ascertain from media, various media sources, is that he was not advocating violence, that he was not advocating genocide, that he was not advocating anything that could be determined hate crime in the broad scope of the word. He identified, from what I understand, he identifies as Palestinian. The way I understand it is his parents lived, I guess, his parents or his grandparents. We're going back a long time in history since Palestine existed. Palestine as a political entity existed basically from the end of World War I until 1948, till May 15th, 1948. There was a mandate that was under the control of the British. It was called the British Mandate for Palestine. So anyone living within the confines of the British Mandate could be determined to be a Palestinian. So there were Palestinian Jews, Palestinian Arabs, Palestinian Druze, even Palestinian Christians. There's never been a Palestinian nationality because there's never been a nation state called Palestine. That region prior to World War I was under the control of the Ottoman Empire, so individuals living in that region at that point were subjects to the Ottoman Empire. Then the British defeated the Ottomans and the British took control, and so they were not subjects of the British Empire, but they were under the rule of the British until 1948, May 15th, when the British vacated their mandate and a war ensued. And the war lasted from May 14th, actually, May 14th or 15th. I believe it was May 15th. May 15th was when hostilities started between 5 nations of the Arab League and the Jewish Palestinians, who remained living in what had previously been the British Mandate for Palestine. And when that war concluded, there were no more Palestinians. Individuals either became Jordanian because they captured the western bank of the Jordan River as well as East Jerusalem. So the people residing in those areas became Jordanians. The people living in Gaza became subject to the Egyptians, and the remainder became Israeli. And that's just a brief history lesson. That's basic. That is the history. But there are individuals who identify as Palestinian, and we live in an era now where often individuals believe that feelings trump fact, and so they feel Palestinian, and they proclaim a Palestinian identity. And in a world, in my country, I'm a native of Canada. You can see the CN Tower back over my shoulder there in a painting, print of a painting. In my native Canada, feelings trump facts. If an individual feels like a woman, even if they're biologically male and XY, well, in my country, feelings trump facts. Feelings trump the basic fabric of reality. And I disagree with that. However, I would never want an individual. If a man wants to proclaim himself a woman, that's his right, freedom of speech. But it's equally my right, under the same guise, under the same freedom of speech, it is my right not to affirm that and to say that I acknowledge the fabric of reality, and there are men and there are women. Gender is binary. There are 2 choices. However, as I say, I wouldn't tell someone that they couldn't proclaim themselves to be a woman, and I won't say to Mahmoud or anyone else who proclaims themselves to be Palestinian, I would not make it a law that they can't proclaim themselves to be what they feel they are, but just simply don't ask me to acknowledge it. I see them as Arab. You're an Arab whose ancestors used to be Palestinian. And if you were alive and living in the British Mandate for Palestine between the years 1918 and 1948, if you were residing in the British Mandate for Palestine, well, for that period of time, you were a Palestinian. But that's a bit of a side issue. Some will make the argument that Mahmoud is a foreign national. From what I understand, I believe he was born in Syria and then later, due to the civil war in Syria, left Syria to go to Lebanon. He studied in Lebanon at the American University in Beirut, and then took a master's levels course, was taking or achieved a master's degree at Columbia University, I believe in public administration. That's not important. But some will make the point that, well, he's a foreign national, he's a green card holder, so he's in the United States legally, so he shouldn't have the same protections as an American citizen vis-a-vis his first the rights guaranteed under the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. Among the rights guaranteed by that First Amendment are the right to freedom of speech. I'm here to say that that's a slippery slope. If you can say to a student in the United States, they're legally, if you can take away that individual's right to freedom of expression, well, then no one's rights to freedom of expression are safe. It's the old bromide. It's that old poem that came out of World War II. I don't know who wrote it. I believe it was a German cleric. He wrote a short little bit of prose that went something like this. First, they went after the communists. But I wasn't a communist, so I didn't speak out. Then they went after the socialists. But I wasn't a socialist, so I didn't speak out. Then they went after the trade unionists. But I wasn't in a trade union, so I didn't speak out. Then they went after the Jews. But I wasn't Jewish, so I didn't speak out. Then they came after me, and there was nobody left to speak out. It's the old analogy of the slippery slope. Once you take away the rights from one group, it's easy to take the rights away from other groups, and then it just keeps snowballing. And I think civil libertarians and those conservative-minded individuals who cherish the values of free speech, well, the litmus test for whether or not you believe in free speech is whether you are willing to support the right to free speech when it's an idea with which you disagree. That is the time when it is most important to stand up for an individual's right to free speech. It can get a little complicated. As far as I'm aware, this Mahmoud was never advocating things that could be determined, was not advocating for violence, was not advocating for genocide or anything of that nature. So I will qualify my remarks to say, if something comes out indicating that Mahmoud was in fact advocating for genocide, eradication of the Jewish people, if that were the case, and if something of that nature comes out, well, then I will revisit this. But everything I've read so far says that he was calling for peaceful coexistence between so-called Palestinians and Israelis. And personally, I have my own views on that. I do not think it is possible, but it doesn't mean that someone with a counter view to my own should be silenced and should be deported. If the United States wants to be the bastion of free speech that it proclaims itself to be, then it has to be tolerant of pretty much all speech, to the so long, obviously that old bromide about you can't yell fire in a crowded theater, and you can't advocate for people to be, you can't advocate for and direct violence. But political ideas, political identities, are we going to bring in laws? First, they'll bring it against, we won't let foreign nationals in the United States holding a green card or student visa. We'll restrict their free speech because we don't like the ideas they're expressing. And then can they extend that to born and bred American citizens? I think that's the slippery slope. So those are my thoughts on this situation involving Mahmoud Khalil, or however it is pronounced. I apologize if I didn't get it perfect. Again, my name, Gordon Causey, 58-year-old resident of the province of Ontario in the nation state of Canada, at least for the time being. We'll see how that plays out. If you like my channel and if you enjoy the content I provide, my perspective, my thoughts, I invite you to hit the like button. I invite you to subscribe to the channel so you can be notified when content is uploaded. I do a lot of live videos, live and unscripted, just like now. This is completely unscripted, just off the top of my head. And I also go live several times a week, and that allows individuals to interact with me. And I can read comments, populate the comments to the screen so that they can be shared, so everyone can see what is being discussed. I enjoy the format. I learn a lot. I'm exposed to differing perspectives. So again, I'll end it here, inviting you to hit the like button if you liked it. Hit subscribe if you want to subscribe. I'm not going to twist anyone's arm. I'm not going to beg. If you like it, subscribe. If you don't, no problem. And we'll be talking to you. I put out a lot of content. I do live several times a week, and then every now and again videos like this, and some short videos as well. So appreciate you taking the time to listen, and I really appreciate comments. So if you want to fill that comment field, let me know what you think. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think I'm crazy? Do you think I'm right on the money? Whatever you think, fill in the comment fields. And again, freedom of speech. I do not censor. So we will talk to you later. God bless.